Hi, Katie. It's so good to see her face. You are beautiful in the choir.
Oh, I want to know this in my head here.
Testing, testing. You can hear me now, correct? All right. So my regular microphone just blew out for some reason. So I'm using a different microphone. I hope that you all can hear me. If there's an issue with hearing me, please let me know by typing in the chat window, and between services, I will try to get my other microphone up and running, because I know this is not as good for audio. So we're beginning our afternoon service. We've had a morning, we had a morning service, we had our Todd service. We had 3 speakers in a row, each one enlightening us in a different way. But now we're going to start to move back toward prayer and meditation and reflection. So let me begin with a little story. A priest and a rabbi from local congregations are standing by the side of the road, pounding a sign into the ground that reads, "The end is near. Turn yourself around now and be saved before it's too late." A driver drives by and yells out the window, "Leave us alone, you religious nuts!" Goes around the curve, and they hear screeching tires and a big splash. So the rabbi turns to the pastor and says, "So do you think the sign should just say, 'Bridge out'?" Couldn't we all use some clarity right now? I wish I could find a sign that says, "Here's how to handle COVID-19. Or how about instructions on how to fix our environment? Or even better yet, racial inequality and systemic racism will end if we." But the signage isn't so clear. And even when it is clear, it's not clear to everyone. We don't seem to be walking in step with one another. And I'm guessing a couple of you are saying, we know how to do all of the above, but no one in power is competent enough to make it happen. Okay, I get your point. But I guess I'm looking for clarity and unity. Yom Kippur is a day when we are given a chance to see clarity and unity so that we can move forward. I can only pray that we succeed in today's goals and then become one with others in our attempts to better this world, to fix this world, to unify this world, and to unify it with something much more positive than a disease. Soon we'll be hearing the story of Jonah. He ran from his responsibilities, but once he got a bit of clarity, while residing in the belly of a whale, he took a journey and he transformed a society. May we get some clarity so we can help transform our society. But we're not there yet. So first what we need to do is hear some music. So we're going to turn to page 325 in our prayer books. And we're going to join the cantor in responsibilities for blessing God and clarity. We need to mute all, please. Mute all. Continue. We need to turn to page 325 for Gesher Sarma Ode, which means all the world is a very narrow bridge. And the most important thing is to not be afraid. Cantor.
כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. והיקר, והיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והיקר, והיקר, לא לפחד כלל. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. והיקר, והיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והיקר, והיקר, לא לפחד כלל.
Turn your books to page 326 and let us read together. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. A people unafraid, unvanquished, says to God, this people you have formed still lives to tell your praise. Still lives to share this teaching with our youth. Our ancient journey has not reached its end. The faith implanted at our people's birth is realized from age to age, our sacred covenant. This people, few in number, ventured forth to carve a lonely path through wilderness with dreams of vine and fig trees, justice in the gates, the land at peace. And still we make our way across the desert. This people you have formed still lives to walk before you. Exiled once to Babylon, we learned the unity of God. A second time dispersed by Rome, we learned that humankind is one. Hear, O Israel, the call still sounds. Eternity is ever present in your midst, a heritage of sacred purpose in your heart. Your past tells a story for all peoples. Your future holds a promise still unfolding. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. We look at one another and we know who we are. We look at our Creator and we know our strength. In pursuit of truth, this people lives to serve the Most High for the sake of life. Behind us, pain and glory. Before us, holy work. Timeless words command us. Toward eternity do we gaze. We now turn to page 342 for the blessing before the reading of the Haftorah. And after the blessing, Vanessa Cate will come on and will perform the Book of Jonah for us. Vanessa has been a student at Kol Tikvah for many years and has also read this portion multiple times. I appreciate Vanessa's continued support of our institution. And I appreciate the fact that she is once again doing this performance so we can truly feel this book. But first, Cantor will do the blessings prior. Cantor.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנביאים טובים ורצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
And now I'd like to introduce Vanessa Cate. We are on page 344 if you'd like to follow along. Vanessa, if you unmute yourself, you should appear on screen once you begin speaking.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim against it, for their evil deeds have risen up before me. But instead, Jonah went down to Joppa and found there a ship heading for Tarshish. He paid its fare and went down into it in order to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. The ship set sail, and Adonai hurled a great wind upon the sea, a storm at sea so great that the ship was in danger of being shattered to pieces. The sailors were frightened. They cried out, each to their own god, and flung the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten their load. The sailors feared for their lives and did what they could to prepare for the oncoming storm, but Jonah had gone down into the hold, the lower deck of the vessel, and he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain approached Jonah and said, "What are you doing? Sound asleep. Get up." The sailors decided to cast lots that they might know on whose account the storm had come. When they cast lots, the lots fell on Jonah. They asked him who he was. He replied, "I am a Hebrew. I revere Adonai, God of heaven, who made sea and dry land." The men felt great fear, and they asked him, "What have you done?" Because the men knew he was fleeing from Adonai, for so he had told them when he boarded the ship. And they asked him, "What should we do to you to bring calm to the sea around us?" For the sea was growing more and more stormy. Jonah answered them, "Lift me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will calm down for you, for I know that this great storm came upon you because of me, and it would be better that I should die." The crew rowed hard to return to dry land, but despite their efforts, they could not do it, for the sea was raging more and more fiercely around them. They called out to Adonai, saying, "Please, Adonai, please do not let us perish because of the life of this man." And they lifted Jonah and they hurled him into the sea. The sea stopped raging. In thanks, the men revered Adonai and they offered sacrifice and made vows. Now, out of the waters came a great fish, which swam swiftly, overtook Jonah and swallowed him whole. Jonah did not die, he lived, and was in the belly of that fish for 3 days and 3 nights. While there, Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God. I called to Adonai in my distress, and God answered me. I cried out from the belly of the netherworld, and you heard my voice. In the depths, you cast me into the heart of the sea, and the floods engulfed me. All your billowing, breaking waves swept over me, and I thought to myself, I was banished from before your eyes. Will I ever again gaze upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep engulfed me. Rushes wrapped around my head. I descended to the low point of the mountains. The gates of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you, Adonai, my God, raised up my life from the pit. When my life fainted away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came to you, to your holy temple. They who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare. But I, with a shout of thanksgiving, I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will fulfill. Rescue comes from Adonai. Adonai commanded the fish, and it spat Jonah out onto dry land. As Jonah lay on dry land once more, breathing fresh air once more, beneath the sun and sky once more, so the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and call out the proclamation that I tell you. So Jonah got up, and at last he went to Nineveh as Adonai had commanded. Jonah started out and made his way into the city of Nineveh. He called out to the people and simply said, in 40 days, Nineveh shall be overturned. The people of Nineveh heard Jonah's words, and they trusted them. They trusted in God, and so they proclaimed a fast. They put on sackcloth, from the richest to the poorest, and word reached the king of Nineveh, and he himself got up from his throne, discarded his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. The king cried out and declared, by decree of the king and his nobles, no person or beast of flock or herd shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth and shall call loudly to God. Let all turn back from their evil ways and from the violence which is in their hands. God may turn and relent, turn back from the heat of rage, and if so, perhaps we shall not perish. God saw what they did, their commitment to turning back from their evil ways, and God relented from the punishment planned for them and did not carry it out. But to Jonah, this was a great evil, and it made him angry. Please, Adonai, he said, is it not what I said when I was still in my own country? Before I went to all the time and trouble to come to Nineveh to say the words which you commanded me? This is why I fled to Tarshish to begin with, for I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, endlessly patient and abounding in steadfast love, ready to forgive weakness and evil. And now, Adonai, please just take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Adonai responded, is your anger so dear to you? Jonah stormed off and left the city. He found a secluded place to the east of the city and made himself a shelter there. Jonah decided to wait in the shade of his shelter until he might see what would become of the city of Nineveh. As Jonah waited, Adonai Elohim provided a gourd and made it rise over Jonah to give shade for his head as the sun beat down. And Jonah rejoiced. He was filled with great joy because of the gourd, and he went to sleep happy. But at dawn of the next day, God provided a worm that attacked the gourd, and it withered. And as the sun rose, God provided an oppressive wind from the east, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him faint. Jonah begged for death, saying, "It is better for me to die than to live." But God asked Jonah, "Are you angry about the gourd?" And he said, "I am good and angry to the point of death." Then Adonai said, "You pitied the gourd and loved the gourd, which you neither worked for nor grew, which appeared overnight and then perished overnight. Should I then not have compassion for the great city of Nineveh, a place of more than 120,000 human beings who have repented? Where is your compassion? Why can you not love? Why can you not forgive?"
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was quite moving. You bring the story to life each year for us, and we are appreciative. So thank you. And now I'm going to ask Jonathan Freund to take over the screen and share some thoughts with us. Jonathan.
How do I take over the screen, Rabbi?
You're good right now.
Okay. Couldn't see myself. Just like Jonah couldn't see himself, right? So once more, thinks Jonah, the Hebrew of Amidah, "You have heard my story, wonderfully told, dramatic, tragic, comedic. Once more, he thinks, you heard me go through all that. The ship, the storm, the sailors thrown overboard, the belly of that giant fish, and let me tell you, he was not the only thing that fish had swallowed. The Ninevites, that worm, only to be left alone under a brutal sun and a stifling wind. By Adonai, who disapproved of everything he ever did with his life. For what?" Yeah, I got the point, Jonah thinks. Love the stranger, people over plants. My life is a metaphor. But he was never told why the Ninevites, not what their wickedness was or why theirs was different from any others. He was just supposed to stand on the street, proclaiming judgment on them, Assyrians, his enemies. They would have ripped out his tongue after they'd finished laughing at him. I admit, Jonah thinks, I should have known jumping on that ship wouldn't work. But as soon as I realized I was the one endangering the ship's crew, I told them to throw me overboard. He received no understanding or forgiveness for doing that. Instead, he spends 3 days inside the fish, where he repents and vows to do better, and he does. He goes to Nineveh, fulfills his responsibility. According to Jonah, he wasn't then angry at God for saving the Ninevites. He was angry because he knew that underneath all that sackcloth, many of them were the same wicked people and would be long after he left. And if I know it, said Jonah, God knows it. Jonah was bitter, and he leaves that worm and the rotted tree, and he makes his way to our city. And as soon as he arrives, pestilence. Not just that Egyptian pestilence. This pestilence is so small you cannot see it, and so big you cannot sail away from it. This is no metaphor, thinks Joseph. Breathing is deadly. What keeps me alive can kill me and kill you, and you can kill me. Your breath, my breath, the air itself. Good people cover their mouths, stay away from each other, however unhuman that is, because that is the word we've been given. For those who don't or won't, the wicked ones, Jonah wants to again proclaim judgment on his own this time. If you keep doing that, you will be struck dead. Except now he'd have to add, maybe. He wants to say, I hope it does kill you, because you're threatening me and my loved ones, and that's what you deserve. Probably not the right thing to say. Besides, wouldn't work even if it was. As two physicians have written, we all live in alternate realities. And for some, the potential physical consequences are outweighed by the human desire to find comfort from their loneliness and helplessness by gathering in groups. I suppose that means, thinks Jonah, their trauma is their trauma, not mine. And I cannot shame them for their trauma. Everyone is living in the belly of their own giant fish. Be empathetic even when I am angry and threatened. It's the right thing to do. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's the only thing that will work. And if it works, it is the right thing to do. Yes, some people you can't reason with. They hate those who are different, hate being told what to do by people who are different, and they always will. God says they deserve to be saved too, together with you. Deal with it. They are among the 120,000 who repented, and it doesn't matter whether they meant it. What matters is they did what they were supposed to do, what they were called to do. They did the right thing. Your offense, Jonah, is not that you tried to sail away from your responsibility, no. Your offense is asking those sailors to throw you overboard. You should not have asked. You should have jumped. If you had jumped and swum toward the shore, there would have been no fish, no belly that you would have lived in. You would have fulfilled your responsibility by jumping. Because if you don't swim, God says, other people drown. And you, Jonah, the Hebrew of Amidah, are not given the choice to rescue only those you think are good. Until next year, that is the end to this Jonah's story.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for reminding us it's important to reach out to others, whether we agree with them or not, to care for them, whether we agree with them or not, and to remember we're all somehow connected by holiness and by God. Thank you. And thank you, Vanessa. We now continue with the blessings after the Hafthor reading, which are found on page 351. Cantor.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל העולמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק על התורה ועל עבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום הכיפורים הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו למחילה ולסליחה ולכפרה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מוחל וסולח לעוונותינו ולעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה. מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, ויום הכיפורים.
We now turn to our booklet called The Voice. If you pick one up when you picked up books, that's wonderful. If not, you do not need to worry about this. I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves if they're not speaking, though, so your image doesn't pop up. I'm going to ask Jonathan DeGan to read a piece of poetry he wrote that is found on page 10 of this booklet. Jonathan, unmute yourself and begin to speak.
I write out each of my regrets. The words spin off the page as yarn, knit like a sweater on my back, weighed down from being rained upon by lives whose day could otherwise a little bit less burdened be through my consideration served from cups of my humanity. The secrets kept from those we love, the pennies gained in mild deceit, the insults dropped to hoist our pride, the honor cowered in retreat. Land ripped apart in arrogance, destruction in impatient haste, a mind closed to a counsel fair, tears time and life down into waste. For some, our sins are paid in fire, or spooled out on a movie screen, which we review and pay in shame, aware of where our fault has been. But here on earth we live and learn our conscience should be never gone, so that our burdens fall and flow into a stream that leads us on.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was quite beautiful. I do want to point out that all the poetry being read today, off and on over the course of the next 3 services, was written through our writer's workshop that we've been holding now for about 6 or 7 years. And one year we looked at the high holidays and we wrote pieces on the Ashamnu. This piece by Jonathan was called Confession, or Confessional, I believe. We now turn to page 356 for the Amidah. A short, quick story. After a long, hard climb up the mountain, the spiritual seekers finally found themselves in front of the great teacher. And bowing deeply, they asked the question that had been burning inside of them for so long. And what was that question? How do we become wise? And there was a long pause, and the teacher emerged from meditation. And finally, he said, good choices. But teacher, how do you make good choices? From experience, responded the teacher. And how do we get experienced? From bad choices, smiled the teacher. This is the day we look at our good choices and our bad choices, the ones we made over the past year, and we say the good choices, those we want to continue to make. The bad choices, those are the ones we need to stop taking, stop making, stop doing. We need to take those bad choices and turn them 180 degrees and find a way to learn from them, to be better. So now we're going to rise on page 356 for the Amidah. We are going to chant Adonai Sivatai Tiftach, and then we're going to give you about a minute or two to pray silently through page 410. You won't make it that far, but guess what? The cantor's then going to sing, and you'll get a few more minutes as she's singing Elohai Nitzur. Please rise. phrase silently through page 401. 410.
Elohai nitzol lishonei mira usatai midaber mira velim kalelai nafshi tidom venafshi ke'afar lecho tihaye Elohai Elohai nitzol lishonei mira usatai midaber mira velim kalelai nafshi tidom venafshi ke'afar lecho tihaye ושפתיי מדבר מרע ולם כללי נפשי תדום ונפשי כעפר לכל תהיה
Beautiful and good yontif, everyone. So it's my pleasure to introduce Carol Fisher for a poetic writing, a poetic piece that she wrote on the Ashamnu, the vidui, the confession. So Carol, if you can unmute, and love to hear from you. Excellent.
Ashamnu, this haunting melody, it touches my soul, my essence, my being. I stand with my congregation, my community, with my friends, my family, with myself. My fist is poised to beat my breast in confession. Each beat represents a beat of my heart. Ashamnu, collectively we confess our sins. Collectively we repent. We have trespassed, dealt treacherously, robbed. My mind wanders. I don't think I've specifically done any of those things. Why do we confess to things we haven't done? Ashamnu, 24 confessions, one for each letter of the alphabet, 24 beats of our hearts. The music transports me. I reflect. Ashamnu, have I been all I can be? Have I been honest with myself and others? Have I knowingly or unknowingly hurt others? Have I been indifferent to the feelings of others? Could I have done more, been a better friend, mother, wife? Could I have spoken out more against injustice? Could I have reached out more frequently to those in need? May I have the strength to do better in the coming year. Ashamnu.
Thank you so much, Carol. I think your words touch all of our hearts. We turn now to page 416, and I'd like to invite you to please rise if you are able. We'll first read this vidui, this Ashamnu, in English, and then hear the words sung to us from Cantor Noah. So please rise if you are able. Please join me on the bottom, page 416. Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely, we are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes. We are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray.
Ashamnu,
invite you to please remain standing as you are able. Turn the page to page 418. We are now on to the longer vidui, the longer confession. And I'll keep my introduction short since we've done this before, but I would just encourage you to embrace the nuance of what we are reading, the nuance of what we've done wrong as a community. And please join me. Top of page 418. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through insincere promises. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. The ways we have wronged you by giving into our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through condescension. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through hypocrisy. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We continue on page 420. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world through our thoughtlessness. The ways we have wronged you by profaning your name in public, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. The ways we have wronged you through gossip and rumor, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you through narrow-mindedness, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. The ways we have wronged you by betraying trust, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We join together. Please be seated. I'm on page 436, if you'd like to follow along with this reading from our Machzor. It is written, know before whom you stand, but in truth we do not know. Perhaps we stand before our history, chronicle of stubbornness, quiet heroism, and the will to live. Perhaps it is the memory of those who struggled to be human in a world that was dark and cold. Perhaps it is Torah that summons us to rise, the golden chain of tradition, of reverence for learning, permission to question and doubt. Perhaps we stand before ideals that call us to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly on this earth. Perhaps it is awe at the kinship of all that live, or the unknowable, unnameable mystery that brought us here. We stand together, seekers, doubters, and those who are firm in their faith. And this we know. The day is short, the work immense, the laborers are reluctant, the reward is great, and the need is urgent.
We now will take a 3 to 4 minute break. I need to stop the